প্রিয় সুধী, দেশে বিদেশে টিভির টরন্টো স্টুডিও থেকে পয়েন্ট অফ অর্ডার অনুষ্ঠানে আপনাদের সবাইকে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি। পয়েন্ট অফ অর্ডার কথাটি পার্লামেন্টারি ডেমোক্রেসিতে ব্যবহার যাই হয়ে থাকুক, এর সবচেয়ে প্রচলিত ব্যবহারটি হচ্ছে জনগুরুত্ব সম্পন্ন বিষয়গুলো জনপ্রতিনিধিদের সামনে নিয়ে আসা। আমাদের এই অনুষ্ঠানে আমরা কানাডার বিভিন্ন স্তরের যে রাজনীতিবিদরা আছেন, জনপ্রতিনিধিরা আছেন, তাদেরকে আমন্ত্রণ জানাবো এবং আপনাদের প্রশ্ন, আপনাদের জিজ্ঞাসাগুলো তাদের সামনে উপস্থাপন করব। আজকে আমাদের প্রথম পর্বে আমাদের সাথে উপস্থিত হয়েছেন স্কারবোরো সাউথ ওয়েস্ট থেকে নির্বাচিত ফেডারেল পার্লামেন্টের সম্মানিত মেম্বার অফ পার্লামেন্ট জনাব বিল ব্লেয়ার। Welcome to our show, Bill.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, almost 40 years of public service. How do you feel after all these years?
Well, I have to tell you, I had a very, very rewarding career in policing in the city of Toronto. I was a police officer for very nearly 40 years, and in the last 10 years of my police career, I had the extraordinary privilege of being the chief of police here in Toronto. And this is a city in which I grew up in. It's an extraordinary city. It's one of the most diverse cities in the world, and yet it is also one of the safest and most livable cities in the world. And I had a very, very good experience as a public servant, as a police officer, and as a police chief in this country. And of course, when my tenure ended, I wanted to continue in public service.
Right. So, we believe that there has been a lot of change over the course of the years in police service, especially with the relationship with the community. And I think you were actually at one point of time in your career, you were designated to lead building or improving relationships.
Yes.
Would you like to say a few words about that experience?
Actually, policing changed very much over the past 4 decades. And when I first became a young police officer, the focus was primarily on law enforcement, on crime prevention. And we began to understand and to realize, particularly in such an extraordinarily diverse city as Toronto is, that without a strong relationship based on trust and mutual respect with the people of our city, we were not going to be successful in keeping our communities safe. And so there was a period in my career where I was asked by the police chief of the day to reach out to all of the diverse communities, to establish consultative committees, to meet regularly with the community leaders from all of the diverse communities of Toronto, to build a strong and respectful relationship with them, to encourage their talented youngsters to join the police service and to become part of our organization so that we could become more diverse ourselves. One of the things that we set out to do was to create the most diverse police service in all of North America, and we were successful because I actually had a rule when I was the police chief that half of all of the people that we would hire would be from minority communities and or women. And we wanted to bring in the language skills, the cultural competencies, a knowledge of community and a relationship of community that would give the police service a great diversity of perspectives so that we could see the world through the experience of an immigrant, through the experience of people with different faith traditions and different cultural traditions, so that we would be known and trusted in communities. And we built a much stronger relationship with the people of Toronto, and it made the city of Toronto a much safer place and a much more livable place. It is a great source of pride to me. I have traveled all over the world, and I have been asked many times by leaders in other countries, how can Canada be such a safe and livable place when it has such extraordinary diversity? And I explained to them, it is because of our diversity. It is because people have chosen to come from all over the world to come and live here in peace and in harmony and safety. And the way in which we embrace each other and respect each other and work together to make this a better society for everyone. That is the secret to our safety, and that's the secret to our success. I think it's a great source of pride for all Canadians that we can be an example to the world. This is how people should live.
I've always wondered, and I'm sure many of our audience would have the same question too, that when you're in public service for such a long time, there must be situations or times when, well, most of us mortals, we feel burned out or extraordinary stress. How did you cope with that level of stress for decades after decades?
Well, certainly the job that I held as a police chief, I was the person primarily responsible for the safety of my city. And in a large city, occasionally bad things will happen. Innocent people will be hurt. There will be serious crimes that take place. There are challenges to our safety and our sense of our safety. But I was always inspired by the people that I worked with, dedicated public servants, and also in the communities that I worked for. The people that I worked for, there were so many good, strong partners. I drew strength from that every day. And frankly, it was a privilege. And I always thought of it as a great privilege to be entrusted with the safety, upholding our laws, and helping to make our city, our country, a better place to live. It was an honor and a privilege. And yes, there were challenging days. I think it would be disingenuous to suggest that there weren't sometimes very, very difficult challenges. But it was at the end of the day, I felt a strong sense of pride and accomplishment, that we were doing the right thing, that we were working hard to keep people safe, that we were working hard to uphold the laws and the values that make this country great.
Right. Now, obviously, after the 40 long years of service as a police officer, as a police chief, you eventually, at some point of time when people would think of going on a vacation, on a long retirement, you decided to devote the rest of your life in public service again. What actually drove you to take that decision?
As I've already suggested, the time that I was in service, in the police service, to the people of Toronto, was a very rewarding time. I had always felt in my mind that I would do this forever, but of course that you cannot. I was the police chief for a very long time, longer than anyone else had ever done the job. When my career in policing ended, I wanted to find another way to serve. And when people asked me, what will you do now? Quite frankly, I had no thought of retirement or vacation. I've never really done vacation. I like to work.
Right.
I work every day. And so I just said, I want to find another way to serve. And not surprisingly, many people then came to me with ideas. Here's other ways in which you can continue to serve your community.
Right.
It's a commitment to service, but also I have many friends and I enjoy working with people, the people of my city. I enjoy working in the neighborhoods. I take great pride and pleasure from the work that we do in community with great community partners. If I had just gone off into retirement, I would miss those people. I would miss my community. I would miss my friends, the work that we do, which I believe is very important. And so I was seeking another opportunity. And I have had the opportunity and privilege of working with many elected officials who are also dedicated public servants. Right. You know, sometimes people think of politicians in a negative way. But I have, in my experience, I have met very many fine public servants, public-spirited people who choose to serve in elected office. And so I began to think about how I might continue service through politics. I had a conversation with the leaders of all the political parties. There was a federal election coming. And so I spoke with the leaders of all three of the major parties, all of whom asked me to run for office for their party. Right. And so I thought about, I'm not a very political person. Mm-hmm. I am primarily a public servant. Right. And so in my conversations with the leaders of the three parties, I thought about what are the values that are most important to me, and which of the parties has the values that are most closely aligned to my values. Right. I also looked at leadership, and I will tell you, it was an easy choice for me, because the vision for the country, a diverse country, a country where there is respect for the rule of law and respect for all of the diverse people of this country. I felt that my leader, Justin Trudeau, was the leader who most held strongly to those values, right. And that the platform that he was putting forward was a platform that would help families, that would help young children. Right. I spent most of my life in the protection of children, and I thought this is something that would be worth helping and supporting.
Yeah, I remember in one of your interviews, I think it was before you decided, or right when you decided to join the Liberal Party of Canada, you mentioned your decision was a values-based one. Could you elaborate on that one?
Yeah, of course. You know, as a police chief, I operated in a very political environment because you have to work with municipal, provincial, and federal politicians. I always felt that the politics was always, it changed constantly. The politics was not what was important. What is important is our values, the things that bring us together, the things that we have in common, respect for each other, a respect for our diversity, a tolerance of different viewpoints, the way in which we look out for each other, the way in a society looks after its most vulnerable and works hard to keep its citizens and its children safe. All of those things are values to me. They're not based on politics. And frankly, politics was much less important to me than the values. And so, frankly, I sat down and I thought about each of the parties and their choices that they made, and I spoke to their leaders primarily about values. And I looked for those values which most closely aligned with the things that I believed, and also a leader who demonstrated those values. And I will tell you, most of the conversation that politicians have is always about politics and about policies and platforms. But I think the things that never change, the things that you can trust and rely on from our political leadership, is their values. Those things should never change. Right. Those are the things that we hold fast to. Those are the things that define us. And policies and platforms change with each election. You know, people come up with different ideas and different politics, but our values define us. And the values we have in common are what make us a Canadian society. And I think it's the thing that draws people from around the world to come to a place where those values are the values of our society. Frankly, this is the most important discussion, because the greatest commitment that our government made was to support the middle class and people who are working hard and wish to join the middle class. Struggling families. I think this is maybe the most profound economic change in our country, perhaps even in our history, as we introduced the new Canada Child Benefit. The Canada Child Benefit provides money to families, substantially more money to families. 9 out of 10 Canadian families, and here in Scarborough Southwest, the number is even higher, but 9 out of 10 Canadian families got more money from the Canada Child Benefit, substantially more money, and it made a profound change. You know, we know in our community there are many families who have a combined income of less than $30,000 a year, and for those families, that's the poverty line in our country. We have many children growing up in our communities who are living below the line of poverty. And as a result of the introduction of the Canada Child Benefit, more than 315,000 of those kids were lifted out of poverty. They now live in families where their families can afford better food on the table, great opportunities, sports equipment, books, things that will help the child grow up and be part of a greater society and give them greater opportunities to prosper. And so that has reduced Canada child poverty in our country by nearly 40%. It is one of the most profound economic changes that any country has ever undertaken. And quite frankly, I will tell you, it is the thing perhaps I am most proud of that our government has accomplished, because we have taken care of those most vulnerable children in our society by providing, through the Canada Child Benefit, the opportunity for them to live a better life and to have greater success. Now, those are steps that we took immediately to bring relief to those who needed it the most. But we've also made an extraordinary commitment to infrastructure spending. Infrastructure spending in building new transit systems, improving public housing and create affordable housing, new investments in science and research. We're making substantial new investments in the health, transfer payments to the province. All of these things are going to improve the quality of life and create growth in our society. And these are tremendously important. I will tell you, in the city of Toronto, we face 2 very, very significant challenges in this city. The first is around transit infrastructure, and the second around housing. And our government has made enormous commitments of capital going forward 11 years. And our economic update added an additional $80 billion over the 11 years to a commitment that we had already made, so that almost $180 billion is now being committed to infrastructure spending right across Canada that's going to make a difference in helping our economy grow. And in helping our economy grow, we enable young people to have a future, to create new opportunity for business, new opportunity for better housing, more affordable housing, more accessible housing, for transit that will get people to and from work. You know, for a person who spends an hour and a half waiting for a bus and commuting down to their job every day, if we can reduce that time, then we improve the quality of their life. And we also give them an opportunity to be more productive in work, right, and to produce more and to do better. We're also making some very significant changes in an innovation agenda to attract bright people from around the world. We know that there is extraordinary global talent, and Canada has to compete with the world in attracting that talent to this country. We have seen in this city the extraordinary contribution that immigrants have made coming to this country. They come and they bring their ambition, they bring their talent, and they bring a vision for this country. They create jobs, they create opportunity, they help the economy grow, and they improve the quality of life for everyone. And so through investment in infrastructure, through an investment in immigration and attracting the best and the brightest to our country, we believe that we can create a great future.